Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I ask you to remain standing, please? I'd ask for a moment of silence for one of our fallen board members. Ernie Harnong served with us proudly and valiantly for 18 years, did a fabulous job in this community, served with pride, a great family man, a great community member, and a great board member. Ernie Harnong. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Thank you.
Counselor?
Mrs. West? Here. Mr. Keys is absent. With excuse, yep. And Mr. Pearl?
Here.
Mr. Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Argona?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Here.
Mrs. Meltzer here.
Do we have any additions and/or deletions to tonight's agenda?
We have one deletion, item number 13, request approval to develop RFP for strategic planning firm, and one add-on, item number 17, request to schedule public hearing for the 2019-20 budget.
Move to approve.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Welcome to your Township Board meeting this evening. If there's anything that comes before the board that you'd like to speak on, please come to the podium and clearly give us your name and address for the record. If you're here for public comment, the cards are in the front to your left. Please fill one of those out, and we'll hear you at the end of the meeting. And before we begin our meeting, we have one public service announcement. Mr. Gilliam?
So by way of updating the community and the board on the results of the blood drive, I guess the one thing I want to say is, and start out by saying, is that somebody asked me, as the weather was becoming increasingly more challenging to make sure that we get the donations that we were looking for, somebody said, why do you do this in February? And the answer is, this is when the Red Cross has the most amount of challenge ensuring that there's enough blood to meet the needs of the community. And so that's why we do one of the largest blood drives in the state at this time of year, even with all these challenges. So with that, I'm kind of setting it up to say that we were close, but we didn't quite get to our goal. 232 pints was our goal. We were able to collect 218 pints. With that, we had schools closed for 4 days prior. We had an ice storm on the day that it was at the senior center, where we had a lot of seniors who wouldn't come out in the ice. We had many who braved the elements to come out, and we appreciate that. And then we had our computers shut down and had to turn away like 14 people at Chippewa Valley High School, and we were short of our goal by 14. So with all those challenges, we got really close. But here's the really, really cool thing about it, and that is we know that first-time donors are very, very important to the Red Cross, because the issue of donating blood can be rather, I think, it can be intimidating for a lot of people, thinking about, having a needle stuck in your arm and your blood being drained from you. But that fear and anxiety is reduced after the first time that you donate. And so with this blood drive has a very high percentage of people who are new donors. A total of 56 units came from people who are first-time donors. So with that, we need to thank our community partners. We need to thank our sponsors, the site sponsors, and of course, often overlooked, but the Red Cross workers. They're the people that protect and collect and safeguard this very vital commodity for the community. And so with that, I want to thank everyone who participated and helped to make this a success.
Thank you.
Good job, Paul.
With that, we'll take item number 1, request approval for a temporary truss structure.
Dear Clinton Township Board, this letter is to request approval for a temporary truss structure in the parking lot of Golf Galaxy in Lakeside, Michigan. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you sincerely, Retail.com and the Golfway Galaxy Events team.
That's up by Hayes and Hall Road. Our building department is fine with what they want to do, and we'll make sure they follow through with all of their plans. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mrs. Melzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 2 is request approval of temporary tent for Ireland's Pub.
Barry, per our discussion, I'm sending this email to request a tent location in the parking lot of our pub. The tent will be 20 feet by 40 feet tent. I'm attaching the proposed location with a highlighted area. We reviewed this with Barry Miller, and he's verified that the tent will be the appropriate distance from the building. Following outlines the actions we will be taking when erecting the tent. 1, we will be putting fire extinguishers in each corner of the tent. We will be bringing in outhouses. We will have at least 2 exit entrances into and out of the tent. We will be hiring extra security for the tent to ensure the appropriately aged individuals are allowed in the tent, which is 21 and over. This will only be a one-day event. We will hold the event on Sunday, March 17th. The tent will be erected the night before and deconstructed the day after the event. Please let me know if there's anything else needed for the approval of this tent. Thanks, Bobby.
He's worked very hard with our fire and building department, and the tent is going up as a request from the fire department.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
We previously, as a board, changed our policy in terms of taking in revenue for events like this, and we are allowing it, but it has to be put in writing, and that they're requesting to take in money for purchases within the tent, not inside of, brick and mortar structure. I don't see that in the letter. That will need to be added if the gentleman is here now. If you want to come on up, and you can verbally make that request, and then we'll make sure it gets added to the letter, and then
Added to the
the board
motion.
would have to approve that based on the information
Will
we
we get your name and address for the record, please?
Thomas Ireland, 33401 Harbor Avenue. My brother wrote the letter, I'm just.
That's okay.
Okay.
No, that's all right.
So you would like to take money under the tent?
Yes, and we
Okay.
won't have any glass products out there, it will only be cans.
I would ask that whoever makes the motion to include that, please.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
And just a point of clarification. So the reason why we had this, we always didn't allow any money to be exchanged. They would have to go inside, buy tickets, and then come out, and, they could be served out there, but couldn't take the money. And that's because that's a way to prevent fly-by-night operations from coming into the community, not making an investment, but doing, sort of outdoor sales. So, but because this is a brick and mortar establishment and, you've made that investment in the community, we waive that. And so that's what we're adding to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we had talked to Barry a couple years ago when we first opened about getting a tent, and there was, we never finalized or applied for anything, but he had said that you can't exchange money outside, and that was a big turnoff for us, because, I was young, and Waves used to have a little thing every year, and we kind of would figure out what color the tickets were before we got there, and may or may not have purchased
No.
the same color. So that's why we didn't want to do ticket sales.
Gotcha.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Okay, so you're all set for this year then.
okay, thank you.
A roll call,
Well,
please.
yeah. So wait a minute, for clarification, you are requesting outdoor?
Yes, sales.
Okay. Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, special land use, a massage therapy facility in the B3 General Business District, a Lucky Therapeutic Massage.
This commission has held public hearing on the proposal for special land use, being a massage therapy facility in the B3 General Business District on the subject property located east of Heidenreich, south of Hall Road, and has made review of the request. We hereby make recommendation for denial of the special land use to permit development of a massage therapy facility, Lucky Therapeutic Massage, in the B3 General Business District. This action was supported by unanimous vote, and a copy of the notice of the January 10th, 2019 public hearing containing legal description and a sketch of location of the land in question is attached for information and file. This matter was petitioned by Ms. Xiaoping Wang, Lucky Therapeutic Massage, 44990 Heidenreich Road, Clinton Township, Michigan, 48038, is represented by Mr. Joseph Shimatero, PC 42850, Garfield Suite 104, Clinton Township, Michigan. We submit this proposal for consideration and would appreciate advisement of your determination. Sincerely, Catherine Cherry, Secretary for the Clinton Township Planning Commission.
Thank you. We'll start with the board, then we'll go to the community. Mr. Sherman, you want to, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, so just to sort of like recap sort of what I know, and then we can fill in the blanks here. But the Planning Commission voted to reject this. They did so because there's 4 criteria, and it might make sense if we can go through the criteria and just say which ones haven't been met.
That'll
by
be good. I
the,
want to first get the name and address for both.
Yes.
both.
Okay.
For the record, Joseph Schmatero Jr., 42850 Garfield, Suite 104, here on behalf of Shapa Wong, who
And
is Lucky Massage, the owner of Lucky Massage.
does she live in the community with an address?
What's your address?
The lucky,
No, where do you live?
me?
Yeah.
Oh, my name is Sao Ping Wong. I living in the 34568 Sandwood Drive, Sterling Heights, in the Michigan 48310.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gilliam, you have the floor.
Okay, so yeah, so the vote for denial in the Planning Commission, and they're our recommending body. They're the organization that says, okay, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to look at it very closely. We're going to apply all the criteria. We're going to work with the planning department. And they voted to say, no, this doesn't meet the criteria set forth. And so if we could, it might make sense to hear from our planning director as to give us a sense as to the deliberations of the Planning Commission.
Certainly, through the chair.
Yes.
If you look at the meeting minutes of January 10th, very specifically in that meeting, I think it was Mr. Spatafora cited that the third criteria he felt was not being met due to creating a possible nuisance to the surrounding area, and that's with respect to the periods of operation of the business, the signage and the blinking lights. And then the other criteria that he specifically referred to was what is the first criteria in the special land use standards of the ordinance, and that is whether or not a business would be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding area. And at that meeting, he felt that, as presented, it did not meet that particular standard. So those are the 2 standards that were specifically referred to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. I can understand the denial from the Planning Commission based on the information that was presented to him at that time, and actually in part based on the misunderstanding and actions of my client. As you may notice, I've had a very difficult time understanding clearly, an exchange of language because of the language limitations. I think my client was sincere in her attempts to abide by every regulation of the township and the ordinance. In fact, she started out with applying for zoning verification. But as far as the use itself, so the board understands, this use was already in place at that building. There was a prior massage parlor there, okay, which the township approved special land use for it. The owner of that business was Min Hugh. Min Hugh sold that business to Chopin.
Something.
Okay, with the understanding that Min Hugh would stay on and continue as an employee because she was licensed until Chopin had another licensed employee come in. So first of all, as far as the use in the area of a massage parlor, this township had previously approved that. So it wasn't, how would you say, a problem for the community. When Chopin came in, okay, and she applied, what was done at that time, she had put up certain images or pictures in the windows showing massages and things of that nature, and also had a neon sign showing open. She was told when she initially came before the Planning Commission, okay, look at, you're not approved yet. Those pictures are not appropriate signs, or which I don't know if she was told the pictures weren't appropriate signs, but they were told, take the signs down, and your hours of operation have to comply with the hours you have posted. Well, she didn't take the pictures down because she didn't think the pictures were signs. On the neon sign that said open, she thought by turning it off that that was sufficient until she got approval. So she didn't comply with that. And so when she came back, and she was told this at the Planning Commission, so when she came back and those things hadn't been done, I can understand why the Planning Commission would say, well, you haven't complied with our ordinance. You didn't take the pictures down. You didn't take the signs down. In fact, someone had called, had stopped by to see if she was in operation because they told her no operation until you're approved. And in talking to her, she assured me she was not in operation at all, but someone walked into the place, didn't see anyone there, then left and made a phone call and said, well, can I get a massage? Do I have to make an appointment? And he claims that he was told, it's just walk-in. Now, Champagne admitted she got a call, but denied ever saying, just come on in, because she knew she wasn't supposed to do business at that time. And there is no evidence of anyone ever doing business during the time that she was closed down. Now, she invested her money in this. She has a daughter that's in college she's trying to support to go through college, and that she's trying to take this serious because this is an investment for her. She came there believing it's allowed because the previous owner had the massage place. The reason they had to get a new approval is because it's a new owner in the place. So as far as, the problem of the pictures in the window, I understand that. She has taken all of those down now. The neon sign has been taken down now. She's been told, if the township approves you, your hours of operation have to be listed, and you only work during those hours of operation. I've also informed her to look at, in any further meetings with the township, when you come in to speak with any of the directors of departments or the clerk's office, whatever, bring an interpreter with you. This way, it's clear that you understand what's being told. Because so many times when we talk, it's yeah, and she wants to, agree with what you're saying without totally understanding what's being said. And I truly believe that was the hindrance at the Planning Commission. Not the use itself, because the use itself was approved before. And she wasn't doing anything, how would you say, outside of not complying with the ordinance, illegal or improper. It's a legitimate operation. She has the license, the two people, Min Hugh is licensed, and also, as I stated in the letter, if the township were to approve her, she has another individual who is licensed, and that individual is Fang Mei Kui, who's licensed through October 31st of 2019 with the state of Michigan. So she has the proper licensing. The use was approved before. She intends on carrying on the same use with the same clientele that the prior owner had. I believe the biggest problem here, and I understand why the Planning Commission denied it, because she didn't comply with what they said, but her inability to comply wasn't intentional, but it was misunderstanding and a barrier language. So I believe at this time, all the pictures have been taken down from the windows, the sign's been taken down, there's been no operations, and she's just asking for the opportunity to carry on the same business that was carried on there before.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the community who wishes to speak? Mrs. Meltzer?
Mr. Cannon, thank you. Just for clarification, Mr. Shimatero, good to see you. But I wanted just to clarify that one of the things that I have as the clerk, because the process for massage licensing initially comes through the clerk's office. One of the things that I've implemented and hold very strong to is an interview process. And anyone that needs an interpreter will get an interpreter. I have Ms. Chin, who was at the planning department, or at the planning meeting, interpreting for Ms. Xiaoping. And so that I just want clarification, because you made a comment that it was based on the fact that she didn't have a good understanding. There was misinterpretation. But for every interview process that has gone on, and every time she met with, except this one, she has had an interpreter that I set up, and I've investigated this interpreter, Christina Chin, who works for the federal government and does an exceptional job interpreting for the two types of Chinese. I'm trying to think of them right now, and I can't think of either one of them. But the dialects for the Chinese. Mandarin and that starts with a C. What's the other one?
Sichuan's?
Cantonese, yes.
Cantonese.
And she's very fluent in both of those
Yes.
dialects. And so she's done a great job for Clinton Township, and we really appreciate her. But just for clarification, when Ms. Xiaoping came to my counter, I asked that question: do you understand, do you need an interpreter? And she had the other woman that came with her and said, at first she said, no, she doesn't need an interpreter. So we started with the interview, and then her friend that was with her kept interjecting and and answering the questions, which sends up a red flag to me. And then right away I said, I need you to just let her respond. And when she does respond, and I can get, there's a clear communication, then I know she doesn't need an interpreter, but I could tell right away she did. And so right from there, we stopped the interview process and we called in the interpreter, set another appointment, and the
Yeah,
process.
she told me that
was
you had
always-
done that.
Yeah.
And,
So I just, but so right now, as far as I know, because I saw one of the planning commission meetings, and Ms. Chin was there to interpret for
Okay.
her. So, and she was there to interpret for our office as well.
I think the initial problem on the interpretation was her believing that those pictures in the windows were a violation of the sign ordinance. She didn't consider that a sign, but she was told to take those down. But they are down now.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you. Just wanted to make one other point, and with all due respect, Mr. Shimatero, and to your client. I think while certainly the Planning Commission was concerned that the things that they asked to be done in between those two meetings weren't necessarily done, to their satisfaction, there was other input, specifically with relationship to the businesses that are located within that building. And I think that was probably one of the major considerations, at least in my opinion, from that meeting, as to the impact that use has been having on the adjacent uses and the surrounding properties in there. And I know, I don't want to get into that because that's part of the Planning Commission minutes I know that the board has received. But I do want to make that point, that it's more than just the fact that the signage wasn't taken down in a timely manner or things along those lines. It was public input, the public hearing process, I think, that brought out some of the concerns that Mr. Spatafora and that the commission as a whole made that denial based on.
And if I could respond to that. Yes, there were 3 tenants that had written letters, but actually their complaints in those letters was, one, the pictures in the windows. There was one real estate person in there saying, these pictures, it's not appropriate. I have a business office here. Another one was the CPA, whose complaint was that there were people coming beyond the hours that were posted, okay? And the third complaint was, again, the pictures and for the massage parlor in that. I don't believe, and none of those tenants had objected to the massage parlor that was there previous, okay? I mean, there was a massage parlor there, again, previous to Shopping buying the previous owner out. All the complaints were bringing people in beyond the hours of being posted, and the pictures in the window. Those were the main things that the other tenants complained about. Other than that, none of those tenants had complained with the previous massage owner who she bought the business from.
Thank you. Mrs. West?
Well, thank you, Mr. Cannon. The question and the information that Ms. Meltzer brought up was actually what I was going to ask, because I remember when I was on the Planning Commission, if the person did not understand, we would get them an interpreter.
Yes.
So that was confusing to me, but she knocked that one out of the park. But what you just said, though, kind of is a little confusing. Why would anybody be coming in there after the hours? I don't get that. I don't understand that.
I mean, from what I understand, the hours that were posted, okay?
Right.
It may have been 10 o'clock, and they may have people coming at 10:30. But maybe, do you understand the question?
Yeah, the time, right?
The time.
The set up time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just.
Can she speak up?
Can you speak into the mic,
Move into the
please?
mic.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Because some is only a little bit the customer is come to the late because some customer is I always is 10 to 10 open is for the 9 o'clock. Yeah, I just close. Yeah, it's sometimes it's only one. Sometimes it's only not too much. The customer is come to the late. Yeah.
Okay, but somehow there's been enough of it for somebody to complain. And why would anybody be in there longer than, I mean, if 9 o'clock is when you close, I can see maybe leaving at 9:15, 9:30, but from what I saw, it was more of an 11 o'clock. Why is that?
Yeah. I think their hours were listed as up to 10 o'clock, and I believe what she's saying is that sometimes they would come late. And so if they got there at 10:15 or 10:20, instead of by the 10 o'clock time, they may be leaving, but can you answer?
Yeah, because I customer I living I go the inside always clean. I clean take the towel
Right, and I can see that as the employee, but these are patrons of your business. And if it says that you're closing at 10 o'clock, you should be closing, not taking an appointment at 10 o'clock. Do you understand what I'm saying? No, I can see by your face you don't.
Because I understand you, because I just, I open, it's only 10, it's right down the 10 to 9.
Okay,
Yeah, it's always, it's like some, only little bit, there's a customer is, can you come to late or something? I say, I just do the 30 minutes of the just leaving, I tell you, yeah,
Okay.
not in all the day, not all the day, that's it.
In speaking with her before, I explained that if the township were to approve her request, that she would strictly have to comply with the times posted on the doors. And even if someone called late, she would have to tell them no.
okay. I was on the planning commission when we had the other young lady who came before us, and it was approved. Everything was above and beyond. I mean, she was very compliant with all
Yes.
sorts of things. But what I see with this that's a little different is even moving in before getting the, certificate of occupancy from the building department to have it be a name change and a new business. Why was that? Why did she move in early?
From my understanding, it's just lack of understanding on her part.
But we gave her we tried to support her with with an interpreter. So even with an interpreter, she didn't get it? Is that what you're
You mean as
saying?
far as doing business?
Yeah, prior to actually getting everything, all of the paperwork and everything done.
I didn't represent her at that time, so you started business before you got the approval? Is that true? Or when did you start to do business?
When you
Sure.
start, I
Mr.
think-
Shimataro,
This
could you use
is-
the microphone?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Mr. Cannon, this is very difficult to have a conversation with her without an interpreter, and I think that it's not in her best interest for us to carry on any further without an interpreter. That's why it's very important to me whenever anybody there's a language barrier, that we have an interpreter there, because it can become a legal issue. And I don't, I think what we've done so far is we've addressed the fact that she needs an interpreter. She doesn't have one today, and even her attorney concedes that he's having a hard time understanding her and not sure that she understands him. That said, if we could hear from Mr. Dolan, he had an important question to ask, but Jack, I'm even wondering if that's a
Well,
good idea, given
First of
her
all, she's
limited
here
ability.
with an attorney, and it's their decision whether or not they want to proceed with or without an interpreter at this point, since she does have legal representation. So I think if we, rather than taking it upon ourselves to make a decision, let's leave it with them as to whether or not they feel they can adequately communicate with us. With that being said, though, here's the question I have. Looking at the minutes of the meeting, the planning commission, she indicated that she previously worked at the prior business. Is that correct?
Did you work for Mingyu?
Yeah.
How long did you work for her?
I just come to,
Joe.
2018
She has to speak in the microphone.
2000, September, October.
Michelle,
Just
Ping,
this
can
past-
you repeat that? Can you repeat, the question was, did you work for the previous owner? And your response is?
Yes, she did. Is that correct? You did work for the previous owner?
Mingyu, did you work for Mingyu?
Work for me, you did together?
Did you work for her?
Not before, not work. I just come to look at the business. I just
Okay,
look at
because
the menu, the business.
Okay.
Because the menu is sell for the massage. Yeah,
Okay.
sell. Yeah.
Well, the planning commission minutes, which were prepared and are filed with us, and where there was an interpreter present, that record reflects that she worked for the prior operator. So which is the correct answer? Are the minutes correct and she worked for the prior operator? Or is she now saying that she didn't work for the prior operator?
She doesn't understand.
Okay, did you go help Min Yu when Min Yu was running the business?
It's one menu is for business, for the owner.
Okay, and did you help her?
Yeah, help.
Okay, when did you start helping her?
October, yeah, October, I come to the therapeutic massage. Yeah, October, and I'm menu, and I see the Kim is all together go to the city.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Kim and the sell the people, and they tell me how it fill out the paper and send get the Kim. Yeah, Kim is no, I one is I meet the menu women together. Yeah,
Yes.
Kim
Oh.
understand
Yes.
me.
We understand that she filled out paperwork, but what I'd like to try to clear up is the previous planning commission minutes said that she worked for the prior owner. So I'd like to find out how long she was there working for the prior owner.
When did you help Min Yu? When did you start? October, September 2018? How long did you go there and help Min Yu?
October.
So that was before you purchased the business, is that correct? When did she buy the business? Why don't you ask her that,
Yeah.
Joe?
When was that you bought? Was that November, December?
November.
November.
Yeah, November.
So you worked for her for about a month before you bought the business?
Yeah, with the menu together. With the
Okay.
menu together is October, is,
Okay.
yeah. together.
Because you never came into the township with the prior owner to register as an employee, did you?
Because this is my first time, is to,
I can answer that. She's not a massage therapist, so she wouldn't have registered as a licensed massage therapist.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but we have a requirement in the ordinance that the employees have to basically be interviewed by the owner. The owner can't add employees until they bring them in and are interviewed, and then there's paperwork that they have to fill
Yeah,
out, questions they have to answer, and then they get approved as employees and photographed and so on under the ordinance.
I guess my concern, and without really an interpreter going through that, would be, when she came in, was it just to view with Menu how the operation was going with the intent of buying it, or whether she actually went there as an employee and got paid a wage?
Well,
Did you
and
get
like I
paid?
said, the minutes said she was working, so,
Oh, and again,
I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
there was the benefit of an interpreter at the planning commission, so. What is she saying now? Did she work there, or?
did you work for Menu where she paid you, gave you money to work for her?
I guess, pay right now is just half, that's not be finished, not.
No, that's you buying the business. When you went there in October, did Menu pay you, give you money to work for her?
Yeah. I menu is
Kim?
Okay,
If I- I think that this is not fair to the applicant. Although we may not be approving her tonight, I still think she needs to have, representation so that she understands what we're saying to her. I think she's trying to answer us, but her answers may not be truly what she means. Yeah, so this is on the record, for heaven's sakes. She needs an interpreter.
Here's what my request would be. First of all, there was a prior business, a massage business at that location. The concerns of the planning commission in turning down her request were the times, periods, people coming late, the complaints from the other people in the building because of people coming late, or the signs in the window. Those were the two main things there. that caused the problem here of an approval. If the board would consider, again, approving the special use of massage, subject to her compliance with the ordinance, and also with, again, to come in, if there's any interview that has to be done with the clerk's office, of that being done, because there would be another therapist that's licensed, Feng Meng Hu, bringing her in and being interviewed, that there'd be approval subject to those things being complied with. The hours posted and strictly complied with, no signage in the windows, any signs that would be allowed would have to be approved by the building department, and strictly complying with the hours. And if she were to fail to do any of those, the understanding her special use would be terminated.
Okay, Mr. Pearl, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I made some notes, and if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read them into the record. I understand what Ms. Melcher is trying to say, but she is represented by an attorney. If the attorney thought that an interpreter was necessary, as was done in the Planning Commission level, he should have had that interpreter here. It's not our fault that the interpreter's not here. It's their,
I understand.
they knew what's been done in the past. And if there was going to be a barrier to speak to the petitioner or the applicant, then it was up to her attorney to take care of that. This back and forth isn't getting anywhere. But I would like to focus in on the Planning Commission meetings that had an interpreter there.
Yes.
Okay? And what was done there, and I have a conclusion whether the board agrees or not. What's being said here is not clear, I agree, but what the minutes reflect are clear, and they were done with an interpreter there. And having her say something different now is not on the record, as far as I'm concerned, conclusive.
At the Planning Commission.
The Planning Commission is the record I'm going off of.
Okay.
And I'd like to read some of the notes that I made. The applicant stated at the January 10th meeting that she did work at the location, and she now operated the new business. She admitted at the time that she was operating the business. If there's something wrong that I'm saying, you can correct it at the end, Mr. Shimatero. This was done without any special land use approval. She admits that she does not have a massage license, but claims their employee does. At the time, concerns were raised about the hours of operation and flashing sign, which we've talked about tonight. Complaints were received from the owners of other businesses, other suites in that building. Most importantly, she did state at that meeting on January 10th that she did previously work at this location. It's inconclusive what she's saying tonight, I agree. Because she doesn't have an interpreter here. And there was testimony given at the January 24th meeting that Mr. Sharon did contact the business, and he went there, and he was told, and he couldn't find anybody, but the business was open. He then called, and the minutes clearly indicate that he was told that he could come in for a massage, and he was given a price. Ms. Wong should have known, should have been aware of the requirements of the township. If she had any concerns about the requirements, she should have looked into it. Further, after the Planning Commission meeting of January 10th, she clearly knew that the business was not supposed to operate. Notwithstanding that, on the very day, it appears that Ms. Wong was ready to receive clients who could just walk in. There's simply no other explanation that the applicant expressed a clear unwillingness to follow the township's ordinances and be compliant in operating the business. The sign ordinance defines flashing signs, and they were definitely utilized. They prohibit flashing signs in commercial areas such as this location. The record in this matter indicates that already this business had operated beyond the hours posted on the building in a manner that is disrupted enough that the adjacent tenant came to the Planning Commission meeting to complain. It's my opinion that the location of this business, including the size of its operations, proximity to the surrounding businesses, and the character of the businesses as a massage business is not in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding area and applicable zoning regulations. I've served, by the way, on the Planning Commission for years, chaired it at one point, and I currently serve on the ZBA also. My reason for this conclusion is first that this particular applicant has already demonstrated on repeated occasions an unwillingness to be compliant with the township ordinances in the operation of a business. Second, it is clear that the location of the business in conjunction with the surrounding uses, its late hours of operation and legal utilization of signage has been disruptive to surrounding tenants. Clientele coming to the massage facility in late hours, mixing with other persons who are there to get their taxes prepared, is not right. Other businesses from the business signage include a real estate group and CPA. The character of this business is an office and professional building. Its use as occurred has been proposed is not in harmony with the nature, scale, location, and hours. For the reasons stated above, I move that we deny the application for special land use permit for the reasons that the proposed use is not of a location, size, and character that is in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding area and applicable regulations for the zoning district in which is to be located for the foregoing outlined reasons, which in summary are the nature of the use of massage business is a location and character inconsistent with the other uses, such uses as demonstrated by the complaints of the adjoining uses, including the character of the clientele and hours of operation, and that the applicant has consistently operated the business in a legal fashion without approvals and licensing and with illegal signage throughout the application process.
That's your motion?
That's my
And
motion.
I'll second that. But can I also add to that, just briefly?
With the permission of the motion maker.
I'm not adding to the motion, but I just wanted to say that based on this motion that you've made with what you've just read, that's a very good motion and recognizes why we're making the decision that we're making. It is not based on anything that's happened tonight, in my opinion,
Correct.
because she does not have an interpreter. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes to deny special land use.
Thank you. Item 4, request approval of a new stockholder, Food First Global Holding, due to merge with Bravo Brio Restaurant Group.
Dear board members, applicant Food First Global Restaurants, Inc., located at 17430 Hall Road, Suite 104, Clinton Township, Michigan, 48038, has successfully fulfilled the requirements per the Building Department and Fire Department, as well as a police background check and verification of taxes paid up to date and payment of the application fees necessary to acquire a liquor license transfer. Based on this fulfillment of requirements, Food First Global Restaurants, Inc. requests approval from this honorable board. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 5, public hearing, CDBG 2019 through 2023, 5-year consolidated plan.
And our new Deputy Planning Director is here to give that presentation. Matthew
Yep.
Wilson, right? I'm sorry. Watson, I'm sorry. Wallace, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're wrong. Wallace, I
Just started the
apologize.
other day.
Yeah, I knew it started with a W. I'm
No, we're
sorry.
going to do that all the time now.
Could you give us just an explanation, an overview? Okay.
Okay, my name is Matt Wallace. I'm the Assistant Planning Director that you hired at the or approved at the January 29th meeting of this board. A big part of why I was brought in was to be the administrator of the Community Development Block Grant. And the reason it was believed I could do that was I spent the last 14 years doing it at the city of Monroe.
And actually, this is just about the ideal time for a new person to start running the CDBG program, because we are right at the beginning, well, we're at the end of one 5-year chunk of the program and beginning a new one. And what we're here to do today is to solicit ideas from the public for how we would like the direction of the program to go. The 5-year consolidated plan, which is what we're here to discuss today, is required by HUD. It's a planning document that identifies the needs of the community and allows us to establish priorities that we're going to try to meet during the next 5 years. The elements of the plan are to identify housing needs, the housing market, non-housing community development, and other community needs. And then, once we've done this and completed this document, it serves as a guide as to what we can do with the annual action plans, which are what you usually see. That's, we have a public hearing, propose a budget, it gets approved, and then we carry out those activities. This document that we're trying to kind of kick off today guides those actions. Nothing in an annual action plan can be done if it isn't prescribed in this 5-year plan. So what kind of things can we do with CDBG? I'd just like to do a quick primer. The most important aspect of CDBG is it's intended to benefit what HUD refers to as low and moderate income individuals. And they define that as less than 80% of the area median income. And if that's not clear, just for some context, right now for a family of 4, that's about $56,700. It goes up and down about $4,500 per person either way. And what HUD considers benefiting low, moderate income residents has to fall into a number of categories. First, as you can see, is area benefit. That's an activity that is centered somewhere that has a service area where at least 51% of the people benefiting are below that income threshold. So if you have a park in a low-income neighborhood that's serving low-income residents, that's eligible. Or if you have a community center with that same kind of service area, that's eligible. But you do have to be careful because just because it's in a low moderate income part of the city, you have to consider the service area, not just where it is. So if you have something serving the whole city, and it's in a low mod portion of the city or the township, it's not necessarily eligible for CDBG. It's an important distinction. The next way to qualify is limited clientele, and that's got a couple different meanings. One is if everyone who benefits from the activity can be assumed, or either is or can be assumed to be low moderate income. So you can either set up an activity where it's only eligible if you establish that your income is below certain thresholds, or there are certain populations where by their nature you can assume they're low mod income, and some of those are like homeless, severely disabled, and senior citizens. The next way CDBG money can be used is housing. Again, it has to mainly benefit low moderate income people. If you have a housing development that's multiple units, at least 51% of them have to be, at least 51% of those units have to be occupied by low moderate income residents. And then for our single family rehab program, each house is considered a separate project, so they have to be low moderate income. And then finally, you can use it to stimulate job creation. And again, the intent is to help low moderate income people. So whatever jobs are created by the activity, at least 51% of those people need to have been low moderate income when they got the job. They might still be low moderate income after they get the job, but they have to be below that threshold going in. And then after you've met that 70% threshold for those categories, if you wish, you can spend some of the other grant on these other two categories, which are slum and blight removal, demolishing properties that are, either demolishing or rehabilitating properties that are dilapidated or just have, been vacated or fallen into disrepair. And then the final category, which doesn't really get used too much in Michigan, is urgent need. That's when something big happens and your usual budget can't cover response. And so there's a potential to use CDBG funds to address that kind of situation. But again, outside of tornadoes, that's not going to happen too often in Michigan, I don't think.
Flooding.
So, yeah, fingers crossed, I guess.
Flood.
So what I did next was I took a look at the previous 5 years of how we've spent CDBG money, and it's broken down into 5 categories. We'll start at the yellow, which is infrastructure. That has been about 19% of how the money has been spent, and infrastructure has been replacing sidewalks and making curbs and ramps ADA compliant. About 14.8% of the money has been used on parks. That was Joy Park, Prince Drury Park, and making soccer fields ADA compliant here at the Civic Center. About 15% of the money has been used on improvements in the senior center. 27% of program funds have been used on the housing program. Most of that was single-family housing rehab. However, a few years ago, there was some, I believe, 50 furnaces replaced at the Heritage Estates, senior housing. 14% has been used on public services. That is a category that covers a wide spread of possibilities. Last year, about 15% of your grant can go towards these public services activities. 3/4 of that 15%, I apologize for that getting a little mixed up, but about 3/4 of that 15% allotment was used by the Parks and Rec programs. And that's a variety of programs that are either intended to help seniors, disabled children, or low-income children. So, each one meeting one of those categories we discussed earlier. And then it also helps like MCREST, Care House, Turning Point, the Senior Chores Program. Those are all some examples of public services that we've done in addition to the Warming Center. So those are the types of activities we've done, and I assume we'll likely continue.
Mr. Cannon, if I could, Matt, if you could, through the chair to you, we didn't get this ahead of time, and I can't make out.
Okay.
So if you could, kind of give us the color scenario here?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are we
I
still on
was-
public services? I got a little lost.
Public services is the blue.
Okay.
I've just been going clockwise around the
Okay.
circle.
All right, so public services, what was the green? Green was
Green was
the
housing, mostly the single-family rehab.
single-family, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's only program funds. The single-family housing, every time we do a house, a lien is put on the property. If that property is sold or changes hands, that money is paid back. So there's program income. This doesn't include that amount. And that's been a substantial amount over the past 5 years, north of $200,000,
What percentage is that one on housing?
27.
27%. Okay.
And then finally, the purple is about 17%, and that's the administration of the program, which, similar to public services, is capped, but at 20%, not 15%. So that's how we've used CDBG over the prior 5 years. So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss ideas and preferences for how we'd like to spend it over the coming 5 years. What we need to be thinking about, and it doesn't have to be at this meeting, although it's more than welcome at this meeting. We need to be thinking about, what of these things do we like? What do we think has worked well? What could be tweaked? And are there any areas that are eligible under the categories I've described that we would like to see added? And, if you have questions about, whether something's eligible, we can address that later, or, now if you like, but,
So, Mr. Wallace, you're looking for ideas right now, but you're also amenable to suggestions at a later date,
yes, yes.
either verbal or email from also the public or just the board?
No, both.
Okay,
So Mr. Chairman, are we going to put this on our website then?
sure.
The question?
That'd be fine. That'd be a good idea.
If you could work something out.
Absolutely, through the chair, we'll make sure this presentation gets put on the website. We'll make sure it's made available.
Would there be a way for the residents to put the information, I don't know if we get interactive at all on the website?
We can certainly get with Mr. Pierce tomorrow and find out exactly what we can do as much as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
two things. One, Ken, I can barely hear you. I think you need to speak into the mic. Because all of your points are well taken, so. I would like to actually set up a time to sit down with you and go through some of the stuff. There's a lot of the nonprofits, McCrest, all of those, I'm pretty familiar with, and I'd like to sit down with you. So I'll give you a holler tomorrow, and we'll set up time.
That would be fine.
Great.
Clarification, if I can. Your comment, and I wasn't quite sure, because I don't recall us having a limitation or a parameter of a 5-year plan in the past, not to say that we haven't, but I thought you said nothing in the annual action plan can be performed if it's not in the 5-year plan. Is that a hard and fast statute, rules? Would it, because I know that there are organizations that have come to us that may not have been there before, then how did, if they're new organizations, nonprofits, that might not be in our 5-year plan, is there a way to say this is, we look at all nonprofits and then?
It's broad
for
goals
new-
and objectives.
so it is broad,
So,
okay.
like, you say further housing, improve social services, broad things that most nonprofits who are going to approach us are going to fall under. But what it's meant to prevent is coming up with goals that you didn't state in your 5-year plan. So what we do is just keep the goals broad so that most things that are going to come to us are going to fall under it. But,
Makes sense.
if you don't make any nod towards, say, housing demolition in your 5-year plan, you can't just start a housing demolition program. You can amend your 5-year plan so that it includes a
That was
housing
my next
demolition
question.
program. But you do have to take that step before you start doing that.
Okay, that's what that was also a question about amending it. And that process, is that just basically a 2-step process where you announce it at the board meeting or introduce it at the board meeting and then approve it at a following, or can you do it?
If it's a major amendment, it's similar to starting the approval of the original plan. There has to be a public hearing, a 30-day comment period, and then an approval process. And then it's submitted to HUD, and, they hopefully approve it.
So is that where we're at now? Is this, because this qualifies as a public hearing, do we just have 30 days then at this point, or is this so?
No, this is a very preliminary meeting.
Okay,
There's going to be another one, most likely the second meeting in March. That I'm planning on having kick off the 30-day comment period.
okay.
And then hopefully we would have an approval at the end of April.
Okay.
Very good. I have some areas that I'd like you to look at as far as qualifying that are currently not qualified areas, and I'm 100% positive they should be.
So that kind of leads into my thoughts on this. So one, it's about allocation. The chart that you showed up, it was a pie chart. So we're spending this percentage in this area, this percentage in this area. Are you looking for comment? And what I'm also hearing is that we're drawing the categories broad enough so that if something new comes up, we're not limited in terms of not being able to fund it using CDBG funds. So are you looking at for allocations in this? Are we spending the right allocation in the right area? Or are you looking for specific ideas?
Yes.
Okay, both of those. You're looking for a comment on allocation, you're looking for comment on specific programs.
Yeah, and
that should be
even,
funded.
you know, the ambiguous meanings of area. I mean, if you mean areas of the city, great.
Well, and so
If you
that-
mean areas of just, you know, things that we're trying to address, that's more than welcome too.
So that leads me to my next question, and how do you quantify that we're actually meeting the standards within the requirements of this plan, like the 70%? So I would think that's easy to do if we're doing housing rehab. We're looking at people's income and we're saying, okay, wait, this is how much you're taking in, we're fixing up your house for you, but then we're putting a lien on it when the house sells, then we're recouping those funds, using them, to continue. But if you're spending the dollars, for instance, on parks and rec programs, you're spending on the senior center, which are township functions, how do we quantify, or I guess qualify is more like it, that we're spending these dollars within the confines of that 70% income threshold?
Okay, the 70% is the wide, low, moderate income benefit category. That's everything we do, almost every year, because we don't have
Okay.
a slum and blight removal program. And like I said, we're not getting urgent need money.
Okay.
So that isn't a concern, really. But what we have to do on an activity level is make sure that they're eligible for CDBG at all. And so when you help seniors, as I mentioned before, they're a population that you can assume overall is low, moderate income. Same with disabled. And then, if we pick a new activity that isn't serving like that kind of limited clientele, we have to establish and document what we believe the service area to be so that we're not in danger of not being compliant with CDBG regulations.
Okay. One of the biggest meetings that we have every year is when we actually do the allocation of these dollars, particularly the part that goes to the nonprofits. So the room and the audience will be filled.
Yeah,
It'll be
I've heard
every
it's discussed.
nonprofit organization in Macomb County, and they'll be coming up to give a presentation, and they'll be talking about the things that they do, not just for Macomb, but for specific Clinton Township residents. Though usually, if they're smart, they're working in, hey, this is how much of, this organization is serving people within Clinton Township, that kind of thing. Does that meet that requirement? How do we justify that? Is that a requirement for the income thresholds, things of that nature?
As long as the types of activities we're doing, yes, they're going to meet the requirements.
Okay.
Because, you're talking domestic violence victims are another population you can assume is low, moderate income. There are, for the other ones where it's not necessarily assumed, there are verifications done on income. For example, Care House serves people outside the township, but we only pay them for, they serve people outside the township and they serve people in the township who aren't income qualified. We only reimburse them for children who are coming from the township and below certain thresholds. So
And that actually happens. So when we allocate a money or a certain amount of money for a nonprofit organization, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting that money. It means that if they serve somebody who meets the qualifications within Clinton Township, do they get it?
Right, with predetermined reimbursement amounts in the subrecipient agreement that they sign.
Okay, interesting. That hasn't been brought to our attention in the past, I don't believe. Okay, infrastructure. So in the area of infrastructure, it seems to me that we would want to spend these dollars on infrastructure programs that are in these low to moderate income areas, but that also fit within something else? I mean, are we using these dollars to then leverage something else? Like, we know if we do this, then we're able to attract either additional dollars from other funding agencies, or are we using these dollars to then leverage economic development in the area?
Yeah, you can do that, and it's, commendable, but it's not necessary. I mean, if you have a low, moderate income neighborhood and its street is, in disrepair, you can fix it with CDBG funds. Or you can do an assessment district and pay the assessment for the low-income people who live on that street. If they, you can, and it doesn't have to be the overall income guidelines. You can set those wherever you want. You can set them at 30% of AMI, 60%, 80%. And then, help those residents if that's something you wanted to do. But the economic development, that's where you have to kind of be careful stating your goals, because if you kind of lean towards we're creating jobs, then HUD is going to say, well, who are those jobs going to? And if it's not low, moderate income residents, then it's a gray area that typically prefer to avoid.
So if we were to set up, for instance, a Parks and Rec program in an area that is, that meets the income thresholds, we could use CDBG money to hire people to actually be the coordinators of those programs on site if it's being held in those areas.
We do that now?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do that now, but that does have.
So we're paying a portion of a staff person's salary then, I would
I don't
assume.
know what the percent is, but
No.
we're pretty
It's-
aggressive about it.
It's a portion because of the 15% cap.
Okay.
And the Parks and Rec, as I mentioned before, I think the last 2 years, 72% of the public services allotment or available funds have gone towards Park and Rec programs.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the
Thank
community
you.
that wishes to speak? Seeing none, a motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
So moved.
Support.
And I would encourage board members, as well as the community, to get hold of Mr. Ballas with any comments that you might have. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, introduction of appointment applicants to the Parks and Rec Committee.
Dear board members, there's one open partial term on the Parks and Recreation Committee. This is a 2-year term that expires on November 30th, 2019. We received 2 applications for appointment, Rachel Riggs and Zachary Tinker. Their applications are attached. Both applicants were invited to introduce themselves to the board at tonight's regular board meeting and will have 3 minutes to do so. Sincerely, Elizabeth Vogel, Deputy Supervisor.
Are either of the applicants here and wish to introduce themselves? Come right up to the podium. We heard very nice things about both of you today from Mr. Frank Pizzo.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. My name is Rachel Riggs. I have lived in Clinton Township all of my life, except for when I was away at school. And I am now a homeowner in Clinton Township for 2 years. Not only have I lived here all my life, I've been involved in the recreation programs my entire life, starting from daddy-daughter dances and Easter egg hunt, Christmas Aglow, all of those when I was little. Staying in the programs as an adult in our kickball leagues, our volleyball leagues, and all of our other programs we have, as well as taking in the perspective from our participants. I've also worked for the Parks and Recreation Department for 12 years, and this is the first summer that I am not working our day camp program. So I would like to still continue in with recreation and helping to expand the community's understanding of the recreation and programs that I think would benefit the community. I am an elementary teacher, and I teach with Utica Community Schools for the last 5 years, so I know the population. I work in Sterling Heights, just right down the road. So I know the population of our residents and things that they like, and familiar with things that are popular with the children at the time. And the big reason I want to do this is I realize the importance of recreation within the community and how it benefits the community, and would like to work to create, oh my gosh, excuse me, really work with to develop something that our community can keep and keep expanding our recreation program.
Good. Thank you for applying.
Thank you very much for having me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Hello, nice to see you guys all again. My name is Zachary Tinker. I also have lived here in Clinton Township my whole life. My parents were born and raised here. My grandparents moved here from Pennsylvania early in the 60s, and so they made a home here for much of the Tinker family. So it's something that we've definitely been a part of. I did get to, along with Rachel, I've known Rachel for several years now, as I also worked in the Parks and Rec department. I worked in the office year-round with the staff there, so I worked with the playground coordinators during the summer, but also with the recreation coordinators and with Frank and Brian, the director and assistant director, throughout the years. We helped put those together. So I can definitely say that most of my career has been formed by that time there, and every part of it I absolutely loved. And so any chance I have to be able to give back to that program, I would absolutely love to be able to do. I think that does kind of, excuse me, public speaking is not my favorite. I have served on several committees like this in the past. I currently serve on a committee that oversees about 3,000 teams across the United States and Canada. I'm currently the chairman of that board, and so we work at programs like this. We do try to make sure we're actively engaging with those teams. So anything I can do to take those skills that I've learned through these different committees, I'd love to help and bring back to the Recreation Department.
Thank you. There's two shining examples of why our Recreation Department is doing so well. A motion is in order to receive and file.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Introduction of the appointment applicants to the Conservation Committee.
Dear board members, there are two open partial terms on the Conservation Committee. These are three-year terms. One term expires on November 30th, 2020, and the other term expires on November 30th, 2021. We received two applications for appointment, Shayana Colanello and Phil Rode. Their applications are attached. Both applicants were invited to introduce themselves to the board at tonight's regular board meeting and will each have 3 minutes to do so. Sincerely, Elizabeth Vogel, Deputy Supervisor.
Are any of the, would you like to speak?
Yes. Hi, my name is Shayna Colanello, and I'm here applying, hopefully, for the Conservation Committee. I have a great admiration for our environment, and I hope to be part of that in Clinton Township. I am willing to get into the trenches of planting trees, maybe working on that Clinton River that we have going. That's the efforts that have been showing is doing so much better. I have been a resident here for 33 years, I can't believe it. And I have just seen the improvement in the Clinton River itself. Anytime I go to even Yates Cider Mill or Dodge Park or even Canal Park, it's just so impressive to see how much healthier the river is itself. So I'd love to be a part of that team effort and work along with that. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Motion is in order to receive and file.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. West, supported by Mr. Pearl. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 8, we had no applicants for the Cultural Diversity Committee, so the position will be reposted. So a motion is in order to receive and file.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Item 9, Williams Log Cabin Bulletin Proposal Request Number 1.
Dear Mary, per the request of the township, we have prepared and issued bulletin proposal request number 1 to RG Kennel on January 28, 2019, for the replacement of the upper gable window and the upper gable wall ends and siding. See attached. On January 31, 2019, we received pricing back from RG Kennel for the 2 items to be added to the project scope. His cost for the 2 windows at the gable is $2,235, and his cost for replacement of the gable wall ends and siding is $9,835, also see attached. We checked back to our original budget estimates from December 2016, and for windows items number 12, we had estimated $1,800 per window, and for the gable end replacement, item number 17, we estimated $11,400 for those work scopes. This work was noted as priority 2 in the original analysis from 2016. At this time, it has come to the township's attention that one of the windows has blown out and the work has increased in its level of importance to be completed. Based on the proposal pricing from RG Kennel for these 2 items, it appears they are fair and reasonable quotes and below the original budget estimate amounts. If the township would like this work completed, we recommend approving the bulletin proposal request number 1 and issuing a change order to the contract to add this work scope to the contract and project. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at any time to discuss in greater detail. Sincerely yours, James Renaud, President.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions of board members? The floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Gallahan?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 10 is introduction of Township Ordinance 451, amendment to the sign ordinance.
Mr. Cannon, if I may, board members have received from our attorney, Jack Dolan, the highlighted item in section 1488.045, which is our pre-existing, this is our sign ordinance as it exists now. Item C will we'll need a motion to remove if we approve. Well, it has been removed, and this is what we'd be approving. So, but if Mr. Dolan would want to further
Dolan?
explain that?
Yes,
that'd be
this
great.
matter was discussed, as I recall, at Budget Ways and Means, and at that discussion, it was noted that virtually all of the applications for variances from this subsection that's proposed for deletion were granted. So in order to provide for the more efficient operation of the township, and it was felt that since we were granting virtually all variance applications for exceptions to that section, that we would be better off omitting that section from the ordinance and proceeding with the ordinance as amended. So what you have before you is the same ordinance with the exception that subsection C is deleted.
Additionally, this is going to make it easier for both our planning department and our building department, and make it additionally easier for businesses to move things along in our community. Meltzer?
If I can just add to that, this is a move in the right direction in terms of having Clinton Township being more business-friendly. As to kind of put it in context, I guess, presently, if the face of a sign changes by more than 33%, that sign is required in order to be in compliance to be either updated or minimized based on the compliance requirement. So what that does is, in a multi-tenant situation where there's many signs on one existing sign, it forces really non-compliance, because we have the situation where some part of those tenants have already spent and invested a lot of money to update the sign, only to have someone that comes in or doesn't have the ability to update or take that down. Then this whole sign has to change. Mm-hmm. That means those people that invested in that sign, those businesses that invested in the sign would kind of basically lose that money and have to go ahead and again reinvest. So what it does is it disincentivizes our signs from looking the best that they could. So this helps make it more business-friendly, so that process.
Thank you. Is there a motion to?
So I'm in favor of this as well, but another point that I want to make is the goal of a sign ordinance is to make sure that all of our signs are similar in nature, similar in structure, similar in appearance, and so that, one doesn't have an advantage over another one. There are tons of different size signs throughout the community. The goal is to make them all the same. But we're also looking at this from the standpoint of, as Ms. Meltzer pointed out, if it's a disincentive for people to upgrade their properties, if it's a disadvantage for people to be able to fill the spaces and bring in new tenants, then it's actually working counter to our goals. And so as a result of that, I think this is a warranted change.
The floor is open for, okay, Earl?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dolan, you're asking us just to remove C, the paragraph C?
Yes, actually, that I'm asking you to adopt the ordinance as presented, which removes C. So the motion that's in order is a motion to introduce with the and publish with the intent to adopt at the next meeting.
Also move.
Second.
The only comment I'd like to make that, as a member of the zoning board, I think what was happening is a lot of business people were having their tenants move in and change the sign and not telling us, not applying for a permit. And then a lot of franchises were getting requirements by their corporate people to change the face of the sign, and then faced with having to come to the zoning board and argue their case that they had no control over. You know, the parent company is saying, look, we're changing all of them throughout the nation, and you're changing yours, period. So Mr. Gillham's right, it's necessary to, and I'm glad that the board's doing this. We used to have a ordinance update committee that would look into this, but it hasn't met in a long time, so.
It's on
Bruce,
his list.
If you want to set that up, that might be an orderly way. And I know the board has changed other things at the request of planning or zoning, but we did have a mechanism to look at a lot of ordinances that involving building and signage.
Okay, good. So we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Pearl, supported by
Second.
Mrs. Meltzer.
Oh, I thought I said, never mind.
It doesn't matter, she can take it, that's fine.
Seconded by Mrs. West.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mr. Gillihan.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 11 is housekeeping. It's an adoption of Township Ordinance 450, the codification of the ordinances.
This is our annual requirement. We introduced it at the last meeting, and now this is the adoption.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mr. Gillihan.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 12 is our quarterly treasurer's report.
Mr. Gillihan, you,
So, yeah,
Usually-
rather than read this, I mean, it's in the packet. Anybody wants to read it? My office is always available. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have on the report. But rather than go through all of the sort of finer points that I'm putting in there, I just want to summarize and say that, the township is on fiscal years. So our fiscal year begins April 1st. There are two tax collections where our revenue comes in. It also comes in periodically from the state. The revenue that we take in off the summer tax collection, those are dollars that we distribute 100% of them to all of the other taxing authorities. So that's the money that goes to the schools, it goes to the county, it goes to various other taxing authorities. The money that comes in the December collection, that's the money that funds the township, both the police, the fire millages, and the township's general operation millage. As well, people pay their water bills. Those dollars come in to fund the water and sewer projects that we have here. We're responsible for maintaining that system with those dollars. So the priority is the money for general operations is coming in December. Our fiscal year starts in April. And so what I'm reporting on in this report is the third quarter of the current fiscal year, which will end March 31st. In that third quarter, we're seeing a rising rate environment. We're seeing, I think, 4 Fed interest rate hikes that occurred last year. We're seeing somewhat of an end to quantitative easing, although for this year, the Fed was initially being very aggressive in saying that they're going to be raising interest rates even more. Now they're tending to pull back on that. So what that has required the township to do with our investment strategy is sort of do both a long and a short strategy. So we have a managed bond portfolio where we take the dollars out to the maximum extent that we can, which is a 3-year investment limitation within our investment policy, and according to Public Act 20 of the state of Michigan. We then have other investments that we like to keep more liquid. Our strategy was to take those out for as long as we possibly could. We're moving from that to take advantage of these and say, let's keep things short, let's keep things liquid. And as we're seeing the uncertainty in the markets increase, what we're seeing is increased volatility in the stock market. Now, that's not affecting the township investments because we're not going to the stock market. Those are too risky, non-compliant with our Public Act 20 or our investment policy. But what it is doing is it's shrinking the yield curve. And so taking it out longer isn't paying us the returns that we're sacrificing for the liquidity that we're giving up. So all of our pool funds tend to be outperforming a lot of the commercial paper and a lot of the CD investments. And so we're left with treasuries and we're left with our pool funds, which are daily liquid, and then our longer-term investments that go out for a certain amount of time period that continues to roll, but on a 3-year limitation. So with that,
Are there any comments or
turn
questions?
it over to,
I got one quick question, if that's right.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, Mr. Gilliam, on the pie chart of all the banks that you have the money in, I noticed Talmer Bank is not there. Is there a reason for that? And if there is, will the merger with Chemical affect us in any way?
because Talmer doesn't exist. They were purchased by Chemical.
Right.
And so Chemical Bank, yes, we have had CDs, and in fact, the Chemical Bank CDs have been very competitive.
Right, okay.
So,
So that merger didn't affect us is what I'm asking.
oh, no, in fact, I think it, in some respects, it's going to help us because TCF CDs were doing quite well as well.
Okay, oh, that's good, okay.
So I think the merger somewhat helps, but it also gives them, the banks offer competitive CD rates when they need money in the door.
Right.
So the merger may have the effect of, in a sense, giving them more money so they don't need to pay as much in returns to us for
Yeah.
keeping our money for longer periods of time.
Yeah, okay.
So it's undeterminate, but I don't think it affects us a lot.
Thank you. Floor is open for a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. The next three items are requests for closed session. We will not be coming out of closed session on any of the items. The first, item 14, request closed session to discuss contract negotiations. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. And item 15 is request closed session to discuss University Building versus Clinton Township.
So
Mr.
moved.
Cannon, before a motion's made on that, can we clarify that that's to discuss a written legal opinion that I issued regarding that matter?
Yes, Mr. Pearl will add that to his motion.
Yes, that's so added.
Thank you. Is there a
Support.
second? Supported by Mrs. West. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. And item 16 also is a legal opinion in regard to the Lipke Street water easement acquisition. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr., who made the,
I did.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 17, request to schedule a public hearing for the 2019-20 budget on March 11th.
Dear members of the board, this letter is a request to schedule a public hearing for the proposed 2019-2020 budget. We are suggesting that the board hold its hearing on March 11th, 2019. Once scheduled, we will assure the appropriate notice is published in the proper publication. The completed proposed budget document will be submitted to all board members prior to the meeting. Sincerely, Mary Hine, Assistant Finance Director.
Is there a motion to schedule it for the 11th?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the February 4th, 2019 regular Township Board meeting. Are there any changes?
I do have one change, if I can, and I quite frankly lost it, but it is on the payment systems. And there's a spot where it gave an acronym. The acronym should be IVR, which stands for Interactive Voice Remote, meaning the telephone payment systems. So, all right.
Telephonically?
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that change, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl. Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Approval of the bills.
Make the motion, you know.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
There are no public comments this evening, so a motion to adjourn is in order. And to go into closed session.
So moved. Support.
Moved by Mrs. West, supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned to go into closed session.